Welcome to the Nurtured Nerds Epic Podcast.
Come join us and get cuddly, get gaming, and get nerdy and
And
get
get
nurtured.
nurtured. Happy holidays,
Man, I almost
everyone.
yeah, I almost forgot how to do that. It's been a minute. Thank
Welcome,
you for that.
everyone.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, this is the podcast where we ask what you're nerdy about and how does that contribute to your wellness. On this episode, number 31, we'll be exploring cuddle parties and discussing the role that gender has and the impact that it has on cuddle events and
Yeah.
that of society. And we're also going to talk about what's going on in our community of nerds, cuddlers, and gamers, which is free to join. So please join us. And please reach out to us, comment or email, and let us know what you think about Nurtured Nerds, about this podcast, and what you'd like to see in the future.
Yeah, I'm excited for this episode, Alyssa, because it was my idea to bring on a couple of my friends that are very interested in how cuddling affects men, especially and cuddle groups for men. So I thought that would be a great topic for us. I'm excited for this. Uh, so maybe we should introduce ourselves, I guess. Um,
Yes, I
you want
am
to go first?
Alyssa. Yeah, I'm Alyssa.
Mhm.
I am also known as the IRL support main, and I'm the creator of Nurtured Nerds. I'm a cuddle therapy practitioner, also a shamanic energy medicine practitioner, and I'm a nerd about many things. I do love playing video games. I love role playing, and I love fantasy and sci-fi, and so many other things like crafting. And I've been doing a lot of crafting, getting ready for Christmas. I love making people things, so that's me.
That's cool. Thanks, Alyssa. It's good to see you again. I'm Mary, and I have been a cuddle practitioner and a cuddle party facilitator for almost 10 years now. And I've been loving doing Nurture Nerds podcast, and I'm a nerd about a lot of things, theater, music, crafting. Also, I made this. I was going to show you guys. That's macrame. So
That is
fun to
Nice.
make.
beautiful.
Yeah,
I love if
fun
you
to
took a
make
picture of
stuff.
it and posted it on our Facebook community page so I can see it in
Yeah,
more detail.
really see it. Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun to do the macrame jewelry. Um, yeah, I'm a nerd for so many things. Um, that's so fun to do this. And usually we talk about what are we drinking. Do you have some tea today, Alyssa?
I do, but it's just regular old iced tea with a little bit of stevia in it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's in this really festive looking cup. So very
Oh,
crispy. I like it. It's from Raising Cane's. I
so
like
fun.
chicken. So
They have good iced tea. That's
yeah,
good.
and they do have good iced tea. Yep.
They have really good lemonade, which is what I like. I'm just drinking
Yes.
water today. But I'd love to introduce our panelists. Have you introduce yourselves actually and tell us if you're drinking anything interesting today. Shall we go with Garth first?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Garth. I'm my probably primary interest is healing, which self-healing, which is very central to kind of your wholeness, wellness theme. Um, I do a lot of work. The local community is really rough as far as cuddle party goes, very difficult to get it going. So I do a lot of work with virtual, I kind of do a lot of support for virtual cuddle parties and men that kind of connecting with men also interests me a great deal. I have a long background in meditation as well, which is probably one of my nerd things. Inspired primarily by Osho. And as far as what I'm drinking goes, I can't drink anything right now or I'm gonna have trouble in an hour or two. So, but I've got some really cool cups recently, and I'll just run over and show them to you as Les introduces himself. I'll be right back.
Thanks, Garth.
Um,
Cool. Go ahead, Les.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Les, and I'm being a good consumer and drinking Coke. Oh, but
Yep.
being a good bot. But I guess, I'm here because, and my interests are, you know, healing and recovery and internal strengthening in general, just because, I'm a survivor of childhood traumas and pretty as close to fatal addiction. And in in the mental health and therapy communities, I've kind of found myself being, I guess, exotic wildlife. I'm just one of those few, cisgendered white males above a certain age that, you know, hasn't killed himself yet. Considering. But anyway, the reason I'm here is, and the thing that I am nerdy about, other than really boring stuff like physics and science, is, like I said, how people in general, and I suppose men in particular, ever do manage to get better. And, for me, it's been kind of a long, strange trip. But, I'm curious as to how others go about it, and, hope to make it attractive, for other folks like me. So here I am. Thank you.
Nice. Thanks, Les.
Thank you for being
Well,
with
let's,
us.
yeah.
I did want to make one comment about you drinking Coke, which is that the
Mhm.
Coca-Cola company is like very largely responsible for our current idea of what Santa looks like. So I think it's very festive.
Yeah, it's festive of sorts. So I'll go with, I'll take that.
We'll take it, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Can I
And
show
then I
off
want
my
to go back to Garth and see
drinking?
your cups, yeah.
Yeah, right. These I got just a couple days ago. They're sencha cups. They're
Ooh,
they're made specifically to drink some sencha tea in them. They're made in Japan.
nice.
I was like, oh, I saw them at a little tea house here called Chai Baba Cups of Love, and it's an amazing store. And
Cups of love.
yeah, it's a great little store. If you look
I
it up,
love it.
Chai Baba Kelowna, BC, you'll see Cups of Love. It's a beautiful little store. Unfortunately, I can't get down there very often for health reasons, but I managed to kind of squeeze it in a couple days ago, and saw these cups and was like, oh my God, I fell in love with them right away. So got a couple.
Excellent. That's fun. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's
Love
another
that
thing.
stuff.
It's another thing I'm nerdy about is tea. But I
Oh,
wish I
me
could,
Ooh,
too. Yay,
wish
and
I,
Mary too.
wish I could drink more these days, but hopefully that'll return at some point.
that's how we got started sharing our teas, because Alyssa loves different kind of teas.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm totally a tea fanatic.
Yeah, nice.
Last night I was drinking Celestial Seasonings,
Mm.
Cranberry Vanilla Wonderland. I love that
Mm.
one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I would like to start with going maybe asking Garth, since I know he has to leave a little early, what kind of first got you into cuddling, if you're okay to share that,
Oh,
and
yeah, sure.
and cuddle parties specifically, or cuddle events, and what, let's share a little bit about your experience. That would be awesome.
Yeah, how did that start? It was quite a while ago. Somehow I knew that the connection between touch and healing, which, I've been dealing with a severe autoimmune illness since 2000, so I've been at it for a while. And I've been
Mm.
through all kinds of stuff. It's a really crazy ride. But somewhere in there, I realized, oh, I think I know where it was. Yes, I know where it was. I was at the Osho Humaniversity in 2005, and I too, like Les, have a background of pretty severe trauma. And they said that if you could find someone to sleep with, no sex, it'd be really good for you. And that was like pulling teeth. Very, very difficult to do. Even they're in Holland, so I was surprised, and they're kind of the Osho crowd, which are generally quite open, and I didn't have much luck. But back here, a friend of mine, somehow I got wind of Cuddle Party and I looked into it, and I contacted Tika in Castlegar, where she was at the time, and got her to come here and host one. And this is December 2015, and it was like, wow, I was as high as a kite. Like I totally took off. What was really interesting from my perspective is that I was doing blood work every month just because I was on drugs that suppress your immune system, and or I've been on them and they hadn't taken me off the blood test yet. So I was getting blood work done regularly while I was exploring or doing my first and actually only in-person cuddle party, and then trying to get it going myself in town, trying to train as a facilitator and not being able to pull it off just because I just couldn't, I didn't have the energy to do it. But nevertheless, my blood work improved a great deal. It went from about I think it was something like 10 indicators that were out of normal to down to 3. And then when finally my frustration kicked in again later on in 2016, it went right back up to 11. So it was interesting to see the effect on my well, certainly on my mood. It was intense. I was on a huge high because of that. And also the effect on my blood. I was like, wow, this is powerful. Powerful medicine. It's unfortunate it's not known that way, because I think it is actually very powerful medicine, but we don't seem to study it. We don't seem to celebrate it that way very much, because I guess it's just too far outside our cultural box.
Yeah, I actually went out looking for research studies on oxytocin, which there are a lot, but they all are studying artificial oxytocin, not like getting oxytocin through touch. And I'm highly disappointed by this.
Well, I remember
So
talking with
I'll keep looking.
I was talking with Len Daly about that, and I'm sure he recognized the value because he was into trauma therapy with vets, and he would have seen the value quite clearly. And I queried him about that. I said, this stuff needs to be studied. And he said, well, who's going to pay for it? Who's going to do the studies? And I was like, yeah, okay, that fits. Yeah, who's going to, unless you have some really rich philanthropist to sponsor it, it's just not going to happen. So my study is in effect probably one of the few, where I was actually, it's a one-person shot, but I was getting blood test results, and that's pretty solid evidence.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fascinating to me. And it kind of, it's been frustrating too, because getting support for continuing to do that kind of stuff in the community has been really, really tough. And then COVID hit and Adam started doing virtual cuddle parties, and that was a boon for me. I was like, wow, I'm off and running with this. So to date, I've done probably, last I count, it was somewhere around 80, and now I'm probably over 100 that I've attended as a participant. And I put out an email newsletter, as you know, monthly, to just kind of keep people knowing what's going on so that these things can continue to happen. Because
a newsletter for virtual cuddle events. That's great.
Yeah, so that's kind of
just so we don't forget to come back to that. Do you want to tell people how they can get on your list?
Yeah, they could just send me an email. How best to do that? Probably.
You want them to send it to me and I can forward it, or
that might be best. Yeah, because the email I kind of keep mostly for friends and family, and I think of Cuddle Party as kind of my family of choice. I don't want too much. I don't want too much spam on it. But
if you guys want to sign up for the virtual newsletter that Garth puts out regularly about virtual cuddle events, send an email to me, mary@cuddleparty.org, and I will get it to Garth. So,
thanks. Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, M. Sorensen, excuse me, M. Sorensen, cuddleparty.org. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Garth. I'm really glad that you keep on top of those things and
and
people know what's going on.
I haven't put it on the facilitators page or the Cuddle Party Facebook page because I wander a little bit outside the strictly Cuddle Party model. So I go into the what's it called, Cuddle Haven people.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So they have some events that are really quite interesting. And then there's Sean is doing National Cuddle Up Day on January
That's
6th.
right. Yes, Cuddle Up
It's
Day
a
is coming.
it's a fun event. It's long. It's like 4 or 5 hours, and
Hmm.
you get people from all over the cuddle world just jumping in. It's quite an event.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. And if you know of other events that you want Garth to put in the newsletter, go ahead and send that to me too, and I'll forward it. Yeah, it'd be
Sure.
great.
Yeah. 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 Typically, it's just what I'm aware of in the virtual world that is happening
Yeah.
in cuddle party and
Nice.
cuddle party related events.
Hmm. Well, I'd like to hear maybe just a little bit from Les about your intro to cuddling and what got you into stuff. So we
Sure.
have hear from everyone.
Sure, absolutely. And, a little bit of a content warning. I tend to be pretty candid when people ask me, how I got involved in therapy in general and how I got involved in cuddling. Um, as I mentioned, the thing that got me into uh, therapy in general was, well, basically, my last episode of drinking
Excuse me.
was a attempt at suicide, and it didn't work. And so I had a feeling I was stuck here, in life, and it was just felt unlivable. So I sobered up and started working with a mentor, a sponsor, and he had the wisdom and courage to tell me that, there was some parts of my healing that he had no experience with and wasn't going to be able to help me with. And so, he said that I'd been hinting around about going to get some trauma therapy for a while. And he said, you're just going to need to get that done because it's getting in the way and I can't help you. So I did and was at that for a couple of years and making real progress. But, again, I have some permanent scars. I mean, some things about my situation aren't really going to get any better, and they just kind of have to be worked around. And one of them is uh, sensitivity to isolation and what they call skin hunger. So one night when I was coming home from work, I had the same kind of experience that I used to get when I would start craving a drink. It's this real tunnel vision and inability to focus or think much about anything else except, physical touch instead of, getting a drink. So unfortunately, I visited a massage parlor, and, I don't know if the room or the audience has any much experience with that sort of thing, but somebody like myself really has no business ever doing something like that because the massage person was very nice, did absolutely nothing wrong, and was only doing her job. And I left that place entirely re-traumatized. I was a mess, and I was terrified because I didn't know how I was going to explain this to this trauma therapist who's, a 20-year veteran in the field, is unlike any other therapist or counselor I've ever been with, and is successful with me in ways that I had never even thought were possible. I was going to have to tell her what I had just done. But somehow or another, I worked up the gall to talk about it. And she said, really, I've got just the thing, you know. And she recommended I visit cuddlist.com, and ended up that night setting up an appointment for a screening call with Madeline Guinazzo, and had my first cuddlist session with her, and a few days later I showed up at her door, looking like what the cat drug in and just an absolute wreck. But and you know, showing up there, not really knowing what to expect and thinking, okay, you know, I'm here now, and you know, this person is now gonna, you know, I don't know,
Help you. Yeah.
well, yeah, maul me, you know, I didn't know. And it was gonna make me okay, you know, and it really was
Yeah,
nothing. It was just nothing like that at all. I mean, it was just a
but it
completely
turned out
different
great.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
I hate to cut you off, Les, as I
no, that's
love
all right.
hearing your story, but Garth has to leave in a minute, and
Sure.
I just wanted to come back around to Garth, and well, I wanted to hear about your experience with men's groups and trying to encourage men to seek out touch, but also whatever else you want to share with us in the few minutes you've got left.
Yeah, the place where I live is very conservative. And so
Hmm.
getting men to do much more than a very quick hug is extremely difficult. I've been through 7 local men's groups. That's pretty all there is, and been frustrated with every single one of them. I even went to a trauma therapy group, for men, which I thought, oh, trauma therapy, they should be into touch a little bit, and no luck. So it's been really tough in that department. So I've been working, but for me, there's so kind of so many. Well, one of the key traumas in my life happened in the 3rd trimester. It was a really powerful one, and that's long before you speak. So it's very physical. The trauma started my body really intensely, and so touch is a really good method to communicate, which is really hard to get. And the subtlest sexual charge can really throw me out, can mess me up rather really badly. So I've learned that. I went to a chanting group once it was a mixed group, and spent 2 weeks of not being able to pass stool at all, or very little.
Mm.
So it would really stress my gut out. So I've been shifting over to, seeing what I can do with men. And it reminds me, once as I was trying to promote it locally, this is a very strong kind of Christian community. There's more churches here than anywhere in Canada. And I thought, well, maybe if I kind of put it in their language, they might get it. And there's some really interesting quotes. It's like Matthew, it talks about be like little children to enter the kingdom of heaven. And I'm like, that's
Hmm.
totally cuddle party at its best. It's
Yeah.
when you can really get the sexual charge away, when you can away from it totally, then yeah, for me, I just go, wow, this is fantastic. Little kid in me just goes nuts. And I think that's why I got so high in the only cuddle party live one I've been able to attend. And so for me, finding guys, when I saw the men's therapeutic cuddle group in Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania, they're an interesting group. And I talked with them quite a bit with the leader just to get a sense of what they were doing. And it was like, wow, this is interesting, really interesting stuff. And the thing is with straight guys, I'm a cisgender straight male. And so if I cuddle with a guy, there's just no sexual charge at all. It's not there. If I can get some guy to actually participate at that level, um, it's a really clean. It's you get them to, if you can get past the fear, it's an incredibly healing thing. And it also takes us
Hmm.
out of, for me, getting support from women is really, really risky. I've run into problems with that many, many
Mm.
times. Female therapists anywhere, it's difficult. So, it's important for me to get that male connection is good, but yeah,
Mm.
it's tricky. But the virtual world has been better. I've connected with a bunch of guys. I found a male cuddlist who's just phenomenally good. Again, through Madeline, same connection. Uh,
Excellent.
she, he's really, really good. But it's
Mm.
I think for men, if we also, as cisgender straight men, we tend to rely on women almost kind of automatically for all our emotional and physical nurturing. And we compete with men. I heard a friend of mine say her husband goes down to a bar with a bunch of guys and they take turns insulting each other. And I thought, wow, that sounds like fun. You know? Not exactly. So, if you can get guys in touch, just cuts right through all that stuff. You know, it gets you to a place of a really deep innocence, helps you connect with vulnerability, which is typically not allowed for men. You know, you're not allowed to be vulnerable. You're not allowed to have emotion. You're not allowed, which the touch will get you in touch with as well. And you start helping each other rather than competing over women so intensely. You can help each other with those physical touch needs that go right back to birth. You know, they're really, really important. And there's often, I mean, certainly in my life, there's some huge wounds there, but I'm sure with most men, there's studies I've heard that say, you know, most infant boys are touched less than infant girls, and this is connected to violence later on in life. So, you know, if we can start to undo that, you know, it could have a huge impact on our culture as a whole. But it's hard to get through. It's hard to get through the fear. The guys are terrified. I'm lucky I have 2 guys in town that are pretty good. I'm still working on that. And I've got a couple guys virtually and a cuddlist virtually. So that's kind of how I work it. But doing more than one-on-one is I haven't been able to do yet. And the group in Pennsylvania, you know, I'm a member, but they've only had a couple of online meetings, and it was mostly just shooting the breeze. So it wasn't kind of like a virtual cuddle party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've only heard of a few men's cuddle groups. It is fairly rare, but it's happening. It's definitely on the rise.
I'm doing what I can to create that in my life. And yeah, mostly it's one-on-one doing the 3-minute game, and that works. That's okay. But there aren't a lot, there's not a lot of guys who are open to it. And so you really have to pick and choose. And you have to be, for me, I have to be careful what happens, because, you know, we can veer off away from touch really quick. And that can be hard too. So it's got its own dangers. But it's
because men,
just the fear speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask you if you would elaborate on that. What you just said made me very curious to understand more.
The fear?
You were saying that you get drawn away from touch really quickly, or you can.
I don't.
But just in general, you've noticed that.
Man, when I meet with guys, I try to accommodate their needs too, as much as possible, because my need for touch is really intense and it's really clear. But that's not always true of other guys. Some guys want to talk. That's more the typical thing. They want to just kind of shoot the breeze about what they're doing or whatever. And that, for me, I have to be careful with that, particularly if I say, well, maybe I should talk too. Then I can get in a place where, you know, what I tell them triggers them, and then they get into a really difficult space, simply because what I'm doing is so deep. You know, it's a lot of people can't handle it. Therapists, I've had therapists bomb out on me pretty regularly. So it's tricky work. I have to be very careful what I say and how I say it, and make sure it's serving me, so that I'm not triggering somebody unnecessarily and it's coming back on me. But if we stick with a 3-minute game and keep it to touch, for me, that works really well. But it doesn't necessarily work for all guys. So I have to be careful of that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have to get ready here. So it's nice meeting y'all. And we'll be able to do this again sometime.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks, Garth.
Take care.
Bye. Take care.
He's great for virtual hugs. Do you guys want
virtual hugs? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, there we go.
I know. Hugs. There we go.
His name is Kermode, Spirit Bear.
Oh, I love it.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Garth.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Talk to you soon, Les.
You bet.
Yeah, what he was talking about, I know I have witnessed some really amazing connections between like cis het men that thought they were going to get nothing because there weren't very many women at the event. But I was like, you know, there's guys here you can talk to, and maybe they like sit back to back. That's a good one that I recommend for men that are trying to talk and connect.
Yeah.
They get the touch and the support, you know, back to back. And and they're amazed at the end of like, I didn't know I could get that from another man. I don't trust other men, which is really sad to hear. But it's
Yeah.
like, how can a man get support from another man? Is very, I love witnessing that.
Yeah. And I really appreciated what he was saying about the competitiveness. I mean, as a, like my biological sex is female, I present gray gendered in terms of gender. I don't really like feel much of a like I don't feel compelled to express that very much, but like I present feminine enough, I'm a woman and like I've experienced it from that end and like the competitiveness on that end. And something that Jean from Cuddle Sanctuary mentioned in a Cuddle Sanctuary alumni call this last month that was really interesting to me that I thought was really good as an activity during cuddle parties is called baby bear wrestling. And it can be a way to like have physical touch, but like also play into and like get out a little bit of that competitiveness and like be a little more physically like engaged without being as, like intimate in that way that might feel more vulnerable. And I thought that was brilliant. I don't know if you've heard about that, Les, or if you have anything to say around that. But yeah, it's just, you're on all fours on the ground and you're just kind of like shouldering each other and like headbutting and I don't know. But I've never seen it, but like it just made me really excited and really curious when I heard about that.
I like that I haven't heard of it before, but sounds like fun.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Garth was talking about like being more childlike, more playful and like getting into that. So that seemed like a good way to do that as well, potentially.
yeah,
It's kind of like the cow exercise that they recommend in Cuddle Party. One of the things they have on the list that you can do and optional is you just get on the ground and pretend you're a cow and you just kind of wander around and moo, and it makes people feel silly, and it kind of breaks the ice and you're doing something physically silly, and so yeah.
Yeah. Make believe.
Yeah, make
yeah.
believe. Group cow
Gita's
tipping.
mentioning, group cow tipping. I don't know what that is, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Might be more to that than, really meets the eye. There's a lot of thought about the behavior of cattle and also sheep to some degree, being herd animals and their level of comfort, rubbing up against each other
True.
and, just like physically being in contact, uh, putting them at ease and, reassuring them. And, we as people, just in general, we kid ourselves that we can, function, navigate, and be stable without it. And I mean, these days, all you have to do is kind of look out the window to see that 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 cultural attitude is failing miserably. Just before this session here, I was on a virtual cuddle session with Keely, and I told her, I had an intention to talk about loneliness, and isolation,
Excuse me.
not because I was, having a problem with it right now, but really a little more because I'm not, for just to let everybody know, I'm really a solo act. I live alone and I don't have a lot of family, left that still wants to do with me. But in any event, I have to be intentional with my connections with other people. I tell people, I have I have a new family. I made them myself in the basement, and it's that, like I said, I had this, really terrible and traumatizing and kind of soul crushing experience with someone that A, had no idea what I was going through, and B, did absolutely nothing wrong. She was entirely innocent. And yet I came away, feeling a lot like I did on that last day, you know, before I started getting well. And, you know, this is the kind of things that we can drive ourselves to, just trying to, you know, you say, you know, be like cattle and be together, you know. But for me, you know, like what Garth was talking about, his desire, you know, to make this more normalized and more attractive and more maybe more oh yeah, normalized, especially among men. You know, I have my fingers in a lot of pies among groups of men, you know, across the, you know, social and I suppose political and you know, yeah, social spectrum, you know, and you know, I have regular contact with a men's trauma group for reasons that might not be so obvious. We sometimes have trouble being, you know, being physically intimate or physically comfortable with each other until we pass a certain point. You know, we overcome this kind of out of date trope of you know, in the mental health world that, you know, says women will recover and get healthy eye to eye, but men have to do it shoulder to shoulder. You know, we have to be, there has to be a project. We got to be standing around the garage with the hood open, you know, and to some degree, maybe that's true. You know, I'm not sure, but and I have found, you know, a lot of really satisfying and connecting experiences with men while we're doing something. But sometimes, you know, we need to be eye to eye, and you know, we need to be lack of a better term, in each other's arms, you know, in order to get us over what stands between us, you know, and between men, it's an obstacle, you know, and in I think a lot of the, you know, the cuddle community and a lot of, you know, more progressive circles, you know, men express some pride and sense of accomplishment getting over that obstacle, you know, but like Garth was saying, in a place that's maybe politically conservative or socially conservative, whatever, you know, it's an obstacle that the group has decided they want to keep there, right? You know, for whatever reason, you know, if you press them on it, they're not always very sure why, you know, but they want it. It's comforting to know that there's something standing between me and the man next to me. And like I said, I say, look out the window, you know, that that kind of culture is failing quickly, you know, and in some cases violently, you know. So, you know, maybe it's comforting and maybe it's reassuring to have that gap between us, but end of the day, it's just not working anymore, you know? So I look for ways to you know, make cuddling and just general intimacy and connection among men more attractive. You know, it's like from my addiction recovery, you know, I don't focus on promotion. I try to focus on attraction. I try to make it appear as though what I'm doing by, you know, breaking those rules and disrupting those you know, boundaries is effective. You know, it works. It makes me stronger and clearer and more content than I was before. You know, and I can tell them honestly that, you know, that bar started out pretty low. You know, it didn't take much to make me feel a little bit better. Right. But now, you know, I've come to a place where I spend time with people that understand me and understand this process, not just cuddling, but, you know, things like trauma recovery and overall mental health. You know, these people are the best of the best, right? And I have long experience with, you know, with mental health care professionals. And I have to say that the ones that I have in my life now, are just walking away the best I've ever known. You know, and they promote, you know, this idea of physical touch, not just for trauma victim, you know, trauma survivors, but everybody.
Yeah.
Because not having it is traumatizing, you know, itself, even just by accumulation, you know. And it's strangely, when it comes to talking to men about this, that seems to be a key, you know, is being able to explain that, you know, the kind of trauma and, you know, damage caused by isolation, you know, and unhealthy stoicism and standoffishness. It's cumulative, you know, it sneaks up on you, it takes time, but when it hits, it runs you over like a freight train, you know, and it's like, then, you know, they get a little more curious about what to do about it. You know, so hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and what you're saying for me was reminding me a lot of something that Gabor Mate is famous for saying, that you may or may not have heard of, Les, but that
Mm,
trauma is not just what happened to you, it's what didn't happen.
yep.
It's like not receiving that connection, not receiving that permission and that access to touch. That in and of
You know,
itself is traumatizing.
Mate, because he's kind of a hero of mine for that reason.
Hmm.
You know, he's he has the nerve, you know, and the, you know, courage, you know, just gall to say things like that very publicly. You know, and that's why, you know, I also tell people to, you know, go look this guy up. I mean, yeah, you know, to watch him, he's, you know, kind of dull as dishwater. Right, you know, he's, but in a way, you know, especially for guys, that can be kind of appealing, you know. He doesn't come off like any used car salesman. I mean, he speaks the truth. He can be a little hard to follow sometimes, but when he says things like that, you know, what failed to happen, what didn't show up, you know, what we missed that is now, you know, unrecoverable, right? You know, it matters just as much as some bad thing that happened. And going through, you know, in my journey to heal, going through it all, you know, I was hurt and limited, you know, and crippled as much by what failed to happen as by what happened. And when I think about that, you know, I'm like, I feel so fortunate, you know, and I feel so blessed and lucky and, you know, such a recipient of serendipity, um, that when I talk again, especially to men, you know, about why I do what I do, I said, you know, I do it this way and I talk about it this way because I'm not a fan of luck. You know, luck runs out, fails to show up. You know, it's fickle, right? And so, you know, I believe more in taking a cue from lucky things that happen and try to make our own luck, you know, especially for men, you know, because we act the way we do as much because, you know, we don't believe we deserve good luck. You know, we believe that our value and ability to make any kind of progress anywhere is based on, you know, what we bring to the table and, you know, what kind of performance we provide, you know. But increasingly now, you know, men, especially young men, you know, they're looking at that and saying, you know, I don't know if I have anything to bring to the table. And if I did, you know, I don't know how bad I want to share it. You know, and you know, it's that old saying, a young man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous thing in the world. You
Yeah.
know, so
That
better.
actually kind of touch. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to
Go
say
ahead.
it's better to kind of head that off at the pass and just recognize that, you know, if he feels like he has nothing to lose, then it's his community's responsibility to show him that, we don't want for him to be lost,
Mm-hmm.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah. And that kind of ties into what I've been thinking about the whole time you were just talking, Les. I know that you do a lot of work kind of advocating for cuddling and in the community, spreading the word of like, have you thought cuddling is a really good healing modality and how it has really helped you. And I know that on this podcast, we've interviewed a lot of practitioners that are facilitators or practicing cuddlers, and we've interviewed clients, but there's another role people can fill, which you do as an advocate, as an ambassador in the community that helps flesh out our community of like, you don't have to be a facilitator, you don't have to be a practitioner, you don't even have to be like just a client, there are other ways that you can be part of the cuddle community if that fits you better. Like you if you don't want to be a facilitator, you don't have to, but you can still be part of the cuddle community and help people. And I'd love to hear your experience filling that role because I know you are an amazing advocate and outspoken person in your groups for cuddling.
Thank
So
you. So
yeah.
yeah, and I think, and I probably think, or I think, Garth and Avian would agree, once you pass a certain point, again, I'm speaking as a guy, once you pass a certain point in being comfortable with and experiencing, this powerful and previously unknown benefit, then I guess it can go one of two ways. It's either that you have an impulse to like, keep it all for yourself and hoard it, or like, again, in recovery, understand that it won't, it's unsustainable if you don't want to share it. I mean, and it's unsustainable if you don't, if it becomes selfish, if it becomes, if you fall into that well of, so a little is good and more is better. And if anybody else is showing up to have some, then I can't have it, and then it's pretty easy after that to just say, the more of this I can share and the more of this I can,
Support.
support and make attractive, the easier it is, the easier it is for me to experience the benefit of it. I see the benefit. I come at this from this really hard, dark place. Yeah, I'm not here for fun, at least not always. I approached it in the beginning and sometimes still do, this is therapy. This is work that I will have to put an effort into in order for it to do any good. And then there's other times where, Keely or, Melanie, Emily will just invite me to kind of do something goofy and silly. And as long as I'm open to doing that, then it's not so hard and it's not so effortful anymore. But again, those start out as obstacles that I think a lot of men, especially like me, have to overcome in order for this to look normal, right? And in order for this to look attractive and beneficial. But once you do, then it's one of those things, I went through this in a big way. It's like, where was this all my life and what was my problem that I didn't chase after it. But you have to get there, and like Garth was talking about the struggles of just the logistical complications of making this happen for a group of men or a mixed group or whatever. And here where I'm at right now, you know, that we're kind of a desert when it comes to, you know, real available and convenient cuddle therapy. You know, and it's really even good therapy of any sort ain't that easy to come by. You know, and so, you know, when I tell people that I have this really intense one-on-one therapy and really intense group therapy for really profound trauma, and I also regularly, you know, partake in cuddle therapy, you know, that sounds dichotomous to them. It's like, what does one have to do with the other? And you know, I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but they have everything to do with each other. And so one is very difficult to navigate without the other. I've had people with trauma background ask me if, you know, they could just subsist and get better with cuddle therapy only. And I said, well, you know, I suppose it's possible, but I don't see how. You know, this is you're dealing with a, you know, with a limitation and affliction that kills a lot of people every year, you know, and if you don't, you know, if you don't take it seriously, might not make it, you know. And again, I'm speaking this way when I'm, especially when I'm talking to men, because they need, sometimes need to hear it that way. You know, they need this, there has to be kind of an or else, you know, is I'm offering, you know, this really gentle and sweet and beautiful and nourishing modality. But I also say, you know, or you might not be around in a year. You know? So
Yeah, what's the downside there, right?
right.
You could have somebody hug you, or maybe you'll die.
Right.
Why
You
not
know,
try
or
it?
right, or end up, you
Yeah.
know, just off the grid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in other words, there's this list of really bad outcomes that especially men like me, but more and more men every day that we're vulnerable to. That, you know, when I talk to men that are at least in a pretty good situation, they're afraid of that. You know, it's like, what if that happens to me? All it takes is a loss of a job or, you know, end of a relationship, whatever the case may be. And I'm in the gutter, you know. And I say, you know, it's entirely possible, but it doesn't have to be that way. There's things you can do to prevent it. So, you know, it's like that's the way I go about it, and it seems to be effective. You know, it seems to resonate. Um, but that's just a beginning, you know, after kind of get going with it. You know, then I guess I don't really talk about it a lot differently than the practitioners do. You know, I mean, I use a little bit different language, you know, I use, I love you guys, but some of your language is, you know, it's a bit flowery, you know.
Really?
But, you know, as long as I can translate it, then I can say, you know, this, like I was talking to a friend, a guy, about, you know, you hear the term heart space, right?
Mm.
No. And I actually know exactly what that means, you know. If you talk to me about the, you know, the space in your heart that you're attending just now, I know what that means, you know. But to him, I have to, you know, say something like, you know, this focus on this really good feeling, you know, and real and a source of generosity, right? You know, that's a heart space is one of them, you know, and he'll understand that. But if I just say heart space, he's like, dude, you know, what? You know? So sometimes it's a matter of translating a little bit,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah.
I think that's a really important distinction. I'm glad you brought it up. And that was actually one of the drivers behind why I created Nurtured Nerds. So there's this idea of like the language that people are using in other communities, communities that are really desperate for connection, that really need connection, really need to be able to access it, and are, you know, very much prevented from accessing it because of the different language that we speak. Like wanting to be able to learn together how to translate that language so that it can resonate for the people that really need to engage with these services and with this type of community building. So I'm really glad you brought that up, Liz. Like language is very important, very powerful in speaking to our minds, our hearts, our souls, and really allowing us to feel safe to actually open up with ourselves and then with other people to look at what we need to look at that needs to be healed through connection.
It is. And like a friend of mine that, you know, he's somewhat active in cuddling. However, he works with a group that, you know, I don't think I would, you know, partake in, because that group of cuddlers don't really emphasize the therapeutic end of it. That, again, in your language has to do with boundaries and consent and platonic connection, you know. But when I explain it to him, you know, I say, this is the therapy of our own, you know, boundaries and willingness, and recognizing our own need for a platonic intimacy that is, you know, that isn't precursor to romance or sex, you know. And that because one of the reasons he got involved with it was because he was so affronted and put off by hearing, you know, so many women online talking about having their boundaries violated, and, you know, and this, that, and the other thing. I said, well, you know, that didn't arise in a vacuum, right? You know, I mean, it came from somewhere. And whether you believe it or not, and because of my own background, and because, you know, some of my boundaries and sense of personhood were obliterated when I was 5 years old, I can explain that, you know, sometimes even just trying to be, you know, intimately but platonically connected to somebody, only to find out that all they wanted was to, you know, be intimate so that they could follow it up with sex, is soul crushing, you know, for a lot of reasons. And, you know, I said, if you're honest with yourself, it's soul crushing when it happens to you too, you know. And this is like, because you're a guy, you're not supposed to feel disappointed if, you know, if you're suddenly offered sex or encouraged to have it. But the fact of the matter is, you know, if it is that kind of situation, you didn't go into it wanting to have the line between you and the rest of the world erased. You know, you still need to be able to see where you end and the rest of the world begins. And you can't do that without platonic connection and intimacy. You know, there's rules to this, and they apply to everybody. Doesn't matter where you are on the, you know, on the gender or social or, you know, ethnic or, you know, whatever spectrum. One of the rules is you will do poorly if you don't see where you end and the rest of the world begins. You know, and it's just, that's the way it goes, you know. And when I explain it that way, then they understand, you know, then they say, okay, you know, I get it. I don't know, you know, the fallout for me is sometimes it makes me feel like I'm being harsh, you know, like I'm being, I don't know, you know, sort of authoritarian. But when I say, you know, when I start talking about the beauty of boundaries and consent and agency and stuff like that. You know, it's like, oh, dude, you sound woke now, you know. And it's just, I said, well,
Is that
maybe
bad?
you know, like I say, around certain campfires, yeah, it is. But you
Yeah,
know, if
that's
I,
true with certain people, right? Yeah.
you know, if I can approach it a little bit differently, but I'm
It's the
saying the same
language. It's the
thing.
language
Yeah,
issue, right? Yeah, just finding the right
yeah,
words that resonate with the people that you're with. Yeah.
right.
Which
Where the
is
emphasis
which is
is.
sad.
Mm,
It has to be that way because we are saying, I think in a lot of ways we do say the same thing, but people don't hear it because of the words. Yeah. Yeah,
mhm.
which is something, yeah,
Yeah,
we're all
the
working on all the
words,
time.
one
Yeah.
of the, like the words and what is emphasized. You know,
Hmm.
I tell them, and I've told all of my practitioners, you know, that again, I'm this, you know, Black Mirror example of what happens from the other side of this. You know, like I said,
Hmm.
I am the one who's trying to glue back together a sense of boundaries and personhood and agency and where I end and where the rest of the world begins, because it got torn away, you know, like before I was entirely conscious, you know. I was 5 years old, and it makes it a little bit easier to say, look, you know, um, whether you believe it or not, whether you know it or not, regardless of whether, you know, some traumatizing event happened way a long time ago or not, the accumulation, you know, over your lifetime of, as you said it best, you know, what failed to show up as much as what did show up, um, has the same effect on you as these things that happened to me had on me. You know, and if your choices are, you either address it and rebuild those boundaries and that agency or not, you know. But if not, you need to understand there will be consequences and there won't be anything anyone can do about it. It won't be somebody's fault. It will happen. And if you do something about it, it's not going to be easy, you know, and it will require some sacrifice and some effort and some courage. They'd be worth it, you know. It will help you avoid losing things that might just lose you everything.
Hmm.
You know, when I say it like that, then they're like, well, that doesn't sound woke to me. That sounds a little scary. You know, good, you know, maybe it's time to be a little scared.
Yeah. Mm.
So there you go.
You know, I'm wondering as a female facilitator, do you have any advice for how I might be able to facilitate men's connections better, like in a group setting is generally how I work.
Yeah.
In a cuddle party specifically, usually is what I do. And I love seeing the men who can connect who never thought they would, who'd think, oh, I couldn't possibly connect with a man. But then when I see it happen, I was like, that is amazing. And I would love to figure out how to create the environment that feeds that better, because it's just kind of organic. I don't know why it happens sometimes and not other times. And as a female, I don't know how I can that, although I do have a pretty strong masculine at times I can bring forward and identify with, but it's like how can I've my sweet spot is to help serve men like you, Les, our tender men that are really looking for connection and maybe and have been hurt by something in the past and so maybe are a little gun shy of trying to
Yeah.
find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
You
always
know,
open for like feedback.
I'm glad you asked.
Oh,
Because
good.
you know, well, this is something that you know, I've had conversations with cuddle therapists all the way back to, you know, when I was still working with Madeline. It's like, you know,
Hmm.
what more can we do? Because, you know, uh we're even though, you know, mostly practitioners for, or, you know, at least 50-50 men, that it still seems like it, you know, we're not doing enough. right? But I think the good news is that, I would suggest, knowing you like I do, that you keep doing what you're doing,
Well,
that
thank you. That's flattering. Appreciate it.
But some of it
Uh,
is encouraging and inviting men, to talk to other men about
yeah.
this, and it's a kind of an unjust and inconvenient uh fact of human nature that it takes a lot for a lot of men to respond immediately and positively to that kind of a suggestion from a woman.
Hmm.
Now, I don't suffer that problem anymore. If a woman
Yeah.
I have any trust in makes a suggestion to me, I'll do my best to give it a shot, you know.
Hmm.
But in order to get over that, I had to lose everything and almost die,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
it's like
Mm.
we don't want that happening on a mass scale, that would be bad, right?
Yeah.
So, so rather, like I said, I said this to Madeline and Keely and all my practitioners, uh, for men, for you to encourage men to speak to other men about this and um, make it clear that, uh, you can present this experience any way you want to.
Hmm.
But remember that you're not making this proposal to a woman, you're making it to another man, and you're a man,
Yeah.
and like you guys, us, we talk to each other and communicate in a certain way. Like Garth was saying, the kind of dubious extreme of, gathering around bar stools and insulting each other, you know, it's like that's sort of a ludicrous endpoint to all of this. But,
It
at
happens. Yeah.
but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't even object to that as long as I know it's being done among men that can also embrace each other and support each other and
Hmm.
be generous and empathetic to each other, then
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, that whatever works, Um, but we as men, I think, have lost the first part of that to a great degree.
Hmm.
I think there was a time when it was easier and more common for men to be empathetic and supportive of each other, probably a really long
Yeah.
time ago. But we've dropped that, and now the bill has come due, now we're hurting really bad. And like
Yeah.
Garth said, we've got this habit of whirling around and running to the first woman, demanding that they patch up our emotions for us. It's a doomed project.
Yeah.
It's asking you all to do something you can't really do. If I
Right. Yeah.
if I couldn't talk to you, or you, Alyssa, or any woman that I know well, if I couldn't talk to you knowing that I'm not just, trying to uh crowbar a bunch of, emotional goodies out of you. If I couldn't do that, I said I'm afflicted. I wouldn't be able to keep that up at all, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I would be right back in my cave, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, I'm glad to hear you say that because that was my motivation for getting you and Garth together on this discussion today. So, yeah, hope I'm on the right track here.
Yep. I think,
Yeah,
if we focus on it, Garth and I are going to have uh, a lot of, good work to do together,
I hope
and
so. I think you
me
guys
and
would connect really
you,
well.
you know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been a lot, there's sounds like a lot of common experience and then also
Mhm.
like enough difference of
Yeah.
experience that we'll be able to complement each other as
Yeah, I
well.
hope so.
I think so. See,
Cool.
mission accomplished. You already did it.
I'm working on it. I'm trying.
Well done.
Oh, thank you. I think we're getting close to the end of our time. What do
Yeah.
you think, Alyssa? Do you have another question before we go to our closing questions?
I'm not sure. I've been looking through these and I feel like we touched on so much. And
Hmm.
I'm not really sure where else to go with this without just opening a whole nother can of worms.
I know there's so much we could talk about here. I
Yeah.
mean, I could talk about this for, all day.
Might have to have a part two.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
well,
I
I
think
hope
the one
so.
thing I did want to touch on, that I'm really
Okay.
glad Gita included in here was
Mhm,
the idea of creating, because we did talk a lot about men, and somewhat about women as well. And what about everyone else? More and more we're experiencing the freedom, for those of us that want to and choose to express ourselves outside of the gender binary. And I shared with this um I shared about this with Jean a bit in one of Mary's recent cuddle events. But I've been to a couple of cuddle events this year that are hosted by a wonderful group called Marmalade Studios in LA. And it's a queer cuddle. And I hope to see more events like that and maybe potentially be a
mhm,
part of creating more events like that.
mhm,
Just creating safe spaces for people that express outside the gender spectrum, or also allies, and just creating that environment, where there's more fluidity, there's more access to connection for people who might struggle to access it, due to differences in gender expression and sexuality, and just like the difficulty of navigating that and forming secure relationships in that kind of experience.
Yeah.
So I
mhm.
wanted to
Yeah.
bring that up and see if either of you have anything to speak to that with.
Well, I've had that on my mind more than once, just because I'm, you know, either as a function of age or because of the things that I've been through. I'm kind of identified as that gray gender, sort of. Um, it's like I can say currently, I'm celibate and asexual, but is that a function of again, just age or, the things that in other words, is it external, internal, or what?
Mm,
And it's at some point you kind of have to not worry about it and just say, this is the way it is right now, and
yeah.
it affords me some advantages, like in a cuddle session. I never have to worry about becoming aroused and being embarrassed because it doesn't happen,
Mm,
and on the other hand, it makes it so that I can't put on somebody else, just like a random person, that, hey, I really like you and I really want to, spend a lot of time with you. But by the way, you know, that part's not going to happen, and so, I have to kind of live the way I do. It works pretty good for me, but I don't know if it would work really good for everybody, but the things like queer cuddle spaces and queer connection spaces are a real desert around where I live. It just none such
mm,
exists. And so I have to, just kind of live with that. But I think, the little bit of experience and exposure that I've had, like, at some of Keely's cuddle parties and some other, more virtual spaces, um, it's got the opportunity to allow for things that in just strictly binary spaces, or spaces where everybody kind of has a binary attitude, you really can't do. Right. And it's one of those things. It's nobody's fault. There's no use getting riled up about it. It's just not going to work that way. You know, that that the obstacles that we're, trying so hard to overcome are going to be much harder to overcome, and you have to make that effort if you want it to work. But some groups of people, it's like those obstacles just aren't there. So you don't have to worry about it. So, I mean, that's my take on it. So.
Yeah. I think it's a great question, and I would love, maybe we should do another whole podcast on queer spaces of cuddling.
I love that. Yeah, and I know
Yeah.
a few people to reach out to include in that conversation, and I'm sure both of you do as well. So,
Yeah.
unless maybe we can have you back as well. So,
thank you.
That'd be a really good topic. I think it's growing because people are more comfortable being themselves, which is amazing, and not worrying about the binary, or not worrying so much about their label, and just being people. And that's actually what I love in Cuddle Party. Like, we're people, we're trying to connect with other people. That's kind of how I see it myself. But it's a people, person to person connection, whatever that means for you and the person you're connecting with. And I just wanted to comment on something you said, Les, of like, what I got, the takeaway was, I can't bet on other people because I'm not ever going to go into a sexual relationship. But you know what? You should let other people decide that. As long as you tell them up front, that's where you're at. There may be people that do want to spend time with you without it going there, but you don't know if you don't ever ask or put that there for them to decide, right? If you take the option away from them.
Yeah.
So I just thought that when you said that.
It's true, and I mean, like, it's a reflection of your strength, to even be able to say that, because I guess leaving that decision, to the other person, because I make it very clear, that this is the way I am. It's like, I see some fragility, and I guess maybe, I don't know how to put it, sense of exposure,
It is.
like,
It's an exposure. Yeah. And I'm not saying you have to do that if you're not comfortable, but you could.
Yeah,
You ever
and
do
I
get
try
comfortable, so
yeah, I do. I mean, it's like, it's that kind of conversation, but it doesn't go smoothly. I'll put it like that.
I have some friends who identify as asexual and aromantic, and I love spending time with them. And I mean, I'm glad that they showed up, and I met them at connection events. It's like, and it helps me understand where they're coming from, and that there are just so many different kinds of people in the world, and we all just need to find what works for us. And as long as we're upfront about who we are, then other people can decide if they want to be around us or not. That's what I think.
Right. And it's,
here.
my,
thank you.
I guess my experience with it is, it's so strange because I'll say that, I'll explain it that way, and they'll kind of come back to me with, like, well, I guess, of course, I'm so sorry, like, after what you've been through, and it's the whole damaged goods thing, in their eyes. That's it, had these things not happened, then I wouldn't be that way. I'm like, I don't know, maybe.
That makes you you, though. That's how you
Yeah.
are you now. I
Yeah.
mean,
I tell people sometimes, if they know me well enough to know the whole story, I said, yeah, but think about it, if all these really nightmare, terrible things hadn't happened to me, I might have grown up to be just, an insufferable jerk, We'll never know,
Yeah.
It creates opportunities to develop empathy and offer
Yeah,
it
Mhm.
authentically. So definitely.
yeah, I agree.
So
Mm.
I'm really curious, Les, if you have a way that you would want people to find you online, to connect with you, connect with your events, if you could share that with us.
Oh, wow. Right now, the only cuddlist activism I have going is working with um a cuddle party facilitator in my area. And actually, let me see if I can real quick pull up the contact information. I'm so sorry, I should have prepared for this,
Oh, it's
but let
totally
me
okay.
Okay.
And
just
it
find.
gives Mary and I a chance, and Les too,
Sure.
if you want to chime in, to
Uh-huh.
choose a cuddle of the episode. I don't know if
The
we have
position
any
of
ideas for that.
episode.
Yeah.
E?
Um,
Ah.
well, I want to advocate back for holding hands because I
Yes.
just love holding hands and how intimate it can be just to hold hands. And I actually had 3 people in cuddle parties I've had the last 2 times tell me how intimate it is to hold hands like this with your fingers entwined. To
Mhm.
them, they're like, that means we're dating. That means we are together.
That means you
If you hold
like
hands like
each
this,
other.
that
Yeah.
means you are absolutely there's something more going on. And I was like,
Okay.
that's
It's probably
interesting.
unnecessary, but I'm just gonna show
Yeah,
my
show
monkeys holding
your monkeys
hands.
holding hands.
They even have
And
Yeah,
Velcro so they can hold
yeah,
hands more snugly.
yeah.
So,
So side by side like that, I love that.
and
Or face to face when you're talking, maybe
yeah,
holding both
I
hands.
love holding hands too. And for me, it's
Hmm.
not necessarily a romantic thing.
Hmm.
I enjoy holding hands with anyone that I feel any kind of affection for.
Yeah.
So it's very accessible, and the hands are very they can be very sensitive and very like awakening to the rest of the body, like grounding.
Mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, like there's these variations. You can have like fully interlocked like that. You can have like more like this,
Mhm.
no interlock.
Or from across the
Uh,
table.
yeah, my partner and I like to hold his hand like I'll put just my pinky in between like
Oh yeah, like kind of
and
like
just
that.
it's like
Yeah.
halfway. Yeah. So,
I like to kind of when I hold hands, I kind of like tickle the palm a little bit
yes, I love
sometimes,
that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Les?
The holding hands, my very first session with Madeline, was it began, and a lot of the session was just us holding hands and, making eye
Eye
contact,
eye
gazing.
gazing. Yeah.
Yep. And the same
Mm.
with Sunshine. The first
Mm,
session I had with her, we just sat on the couch and held hands and talked.
Mm.
mhm,
Um, but for actual cuddling positions that everybody thinks of, I'm a big fan of head on the lap and best seat in the house. And
Mhm.
basic, like spooning type positions are with
mhm.
a lot of, compression, like not a light.
Holding tight.
Yeah, yeah.
Like compression
Mhm.
on your shoulders or around
Actually,
like your torso or
actually most often on my arms and legs.
okay.
Um,
So
it
is that
feels
like
really
like squeezing
good.
or like
Yeah.
sustained
Okay.
pressure?
Or like, a, a, their leg on top of my leg,
Mm,
or their
Mm-hmm.
arm on top of
Yeah.
my arm,
Yeah,
head
just
on
resting
my,
over.
yeah, yeah. So
the
that I
natural
feel them.
weight. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
That's, very
Nice.
soothing and
Hmm.
um, settling for me.
Something that I just learned yesterday from a fellow practitioner who I had a mutual cuddle with, like recently, like just started like connecting with them recently. they taught me about yesterday that I hadn't considered before was putting he was saying like, oh, I like to sleep sometimes with just putting a body pillow like here and like all the way down just in the middle, just that weight. I was like, that's a good idea. And that's a good way to give that to yourself if you don't have a partner, just because I like traditionally I always think of like using a weighted blanket, but if you have it just like more concentrated in one area, that can be more comforting too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. To answer your question about how to get in touch with me, I've got a cuddleparty.org email address too, and I don't mind giving it out. It's just lbender@cuddleparty.org. And for the cuddle parties in my area, if you want to keep an eye on Meetup or Eventbrite, our cuddle parties are at the Zen Loft community group, or the Zen Loft community center. But you'll be able to find it by searching for cuddle parties in Aurora. I believe our next one is going to be on January 14th. But if you reach out to me, by that email address, then I'll be able to get all the details for you. Or, it's like anybody can ask me anything. Hopefully by now everybody realizes I don't pull very many punches. I'll just go ahead and, the most terrifying thing I do is tell people the truth about myself.
People's truth. Where is Aurora? Will you remind us?
Yeah, Aurora, Illinois is a southwest suburb of Chicago. And
Okay.
the Zen Loft is on Downer Street in downtown Aurora.
I think
that's where we are.
Dwight is in Chicago and he does men's group. Have you looked his stuff up? Dwight Okita?
Yeah, actually he and I
Is that too
haven't
far away from you?
yet. Yeah,
See, there's
it can
another
be
one I can
difficult.
connect you with.
Sure, might as
I
well.
think so. I think his focus is more with gay men, but he does do gay or men's cuddle groups. So I know he does that. Anyway, we can get you hooked up.
Sure. I mean, like,
Yeah.
tell them, I'm queer in that I'm gray gender. So if that helps.
There you go. I mean, he doesn't restrict it. It's a men's cuddle, but I know that a lot of gay men go there. Anyway.
Cool.
So
Nice.
yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, so this has been wonderful. Les, is there anything you would tell people about what would be your message to the world after having this conversation?
Really, in just short sentences, mental and emotional well-being and sense of order is really becoming critical, and cuddle experiences, cuddle community, human connection is a vital part of that. And the options to try something else are starting to run out. So this is, your choices are either do it or don't. Neither one of them is free, but one of them's worth it. The other is a ripoff. So thank you.
I love that. Love that. Alyssa, what else? Is there anything you'd like to say?
Be gentle with yourself. I've been delving into human design lately and finding a lot more compassion for myself in the way that I engage in life and the way that I engage with myself, and just learning to love how I show up. Like we all show up in different ways. We're all designed in different ways that the intention or the overall design behind that is that each of us as individuals honoring ourselves and how we best show up and how we best feed ourselves allows us to be in such a way that we're contributing, each one of us individually together, to overall healing of the world. Each of us being in our truth and honoring ourselves. That is a contribution not just to yourself, but to everyone, to the world. So there are these horrific things happening in the world, these things that are really hard to know are happening and to feel really powerless about. But I always remind myself that I can contribute in my own ways, the ways that call to me, that is divinely designed for me to be called in certain ways. And so I can contribute by honoring myself. So that's what I want to share. What about you, Mary?
Thank you, Alyssa. I love that because that is something I have to remind myself of. But, I can see there's a lot that needs to be done in the world, and I sometimes beat myself up because I'm not doing very much. But I have to remind myself I am.
Yeah.
I'm doing something. It's what I can do, and I'm good at it.
Yeah. It all
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah, it all matters. It all adds to the world. So the way I choose to work in the world is one hug at a time.
Amen. Yeah, I mean, both of you, Mary, you were asking, what more do I do? I said, it's like you just keep being you, and Alyssa mentioning, this is uh your presence and your how I see you anyway, that by itself, has this sense of reassurance and order, and you know, gives me confidence, right? Just by being how you are. Some things, they're successful by effort and intention. And some things are most successful, you just kind of let them happen. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, like our society is so conditioned towards doing, towards, like what you would think of
Achievement.
as active action being the thing
Yeah.
that makes change happen. But a lot of times it can
Mhm.
be just allowing.
Mhm.
That can be really powerful as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And taking it back to, appealing to men, we're terrified of things happening out, not under our control and not by our effort and skill. So,
Yeah.
when we get the nerve to kind of let things happen, uh, everybody stands around and pats us on the back and tells us, it's like,
Hmm.
I just got out of the way,
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to get out of your own way a lot of the time.
Yeah.
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 Just stop the active resistance and then it's like, whoo, now I can relax, right?
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
Uh,
being with us, Les. I did just want to quickly share, we have a website, nurturednerds.com. Mary's been very generously hosting that. And I'm looking into possibly hosting it on, what is it called? Bluehost?
Yeah, my host is Bluehost. That's what I
Okay,
use.
great.
Yeah.
So we at nurturednerds.com. We got a Facebook group, Nurtured Nerds community, and we are looking into creating more offerings if it's wanted. I did create a Discord server. I haven't found many people yet who want to join that. But that
Oh,
could be a
don't go
way
away, Les.
that could be a way
I'm
to
here.
connect more directly and also get together to play games. Like we have we have nerd breaks every week hosted by different people. I host one every third Sunday. So I just did that this past Sunday. It was really wonderful. We ask each other interested questions with the intention of fostering connection. It's called Create the Love. And so you can find out about those on our Facebook group. And what else? If you want to connect with us, if you want to join our community, you can email nurturednerdsnewbies@gmail.com or nurturednerds@gmail.com. I believe Crystal created a wonderful meetup group. So look for Nurtured Nerds on Meetup if you like to use that app. And we have a drawing for our new member raffle at the end of December. And it's the normal loot. And our care package, a free 30-minute virtual session with one of our professional cuddlers. And the way that would work is you will have a very short screening call with them to see if you're a good fit for each other. And then you'll have a nice connection session. Mary's ebook is also in here, The Art of Authenticity, How to Be You. It's a great book. And a video game gift card. I think it can be for Steam, or if you use another platform, we can work that out. And also we would welcome the winner to create a question for us to answer in a future podcast episode. And as always, we are rating Cassandra Brown's wonderful course, Jerk Proof Your Relationships. So you would get a discount on that as well. And we're working on our next side quest, Gita says, so stay tuned. I'm excited to see what comes up there. And our raffle's every 3 months, so it's about every season. So we'll have another one, I'm guessing at the beginning of spring. What else? We have a virtual game night, virtual hangout, virtual dance breaks. Yeah, just come to our Facebook group, see what events we have going on, ask questions or engage with questions other people ask.
We need to make sure Garth knows about all the virtual stuff we do, so I'm not sure he knows.
Yeah,
He's
okay.
really into the virtual connections, yeah.
Good.
Me too.
Get back to him. Yeah, you too, Les. Yeah, you're invited.
And
What
if
do
you're
y'all
listening to
say?
this
I
podcast,
want
you
nice
are on
things too.
YouTube, I'm guessing. So subscribe, like, comment, all of the good stuff. What were you saying, Les?
Oh, no, I say, like people say, I want nice things too.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It's for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and if
Well,
anyone has an event that they want to see, like, we'll welcome more people to come and create their own community events in Nurtured Nerds and offer them.
mhm.
I'd love to see more variety, more offerings for anyone that feels called to do that.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, how are we feeling after our conversation today?
I'm feeling nurtured. Are you
Me
feeling
too.
nurtured?
Les, are you feeling nurtured today?
I'm feeling nurtured and energized. So yes.
Good.
Awesome.
Very good.
So to finish us out, I invite us all, if you're interested, to give yourself a hug and remember to give yourself all the love you give other people when you hug them, when you do that. Because you deserve it.
Mm.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
3, 2, 1. Recording over.
Mm.
Thank
Welcome,
you for that.
everyone.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, this is the podcast where we ask what you're nerdy about and how does that contribute to your wellness. On this episode, number 31, we'll be exploring cuddle parties and discussing the role that gender has and the impact that it has on cuddle events. And on our own, we'll discuss the role that gender has and the impact that snuggle events have on our one wells and that of society. I'm sorry, I don't know what to make of that.
One wells. We're reading a great summary that our producer put together, but unfortunately we didn't see it ahead of time. It's wellness.
Okay, the role that gender has on and the impact that it has on
our
own
events
and on our own wellness.
I think.
Like another podcast, I could get pretty deep into like, this journey from a very first experience with a cuddle therapist, which was fraught, it was, all the way up to, starting to get into cuddle parties, and understanding that the word party, is a moniker, and the kind of things that happen there in those spaces, it's a whole lot more than just a party. But until you go, it's very difficult to put that across.
I'm thinking of another similarity with you and Garth Les, that you're very open about your journey and what you've gone through and where it's brought you to. I would love to have some kind of like, here's a case study of a cuddle journey. Is very interesting to like really like see your story. I mean, I think that would be fascinating. I don't know what that would be, if it's a blog or a book or a news. I don't know how that would happen, but
documentary video.
I'm just documentary movie of like, here's all the, let's focus on a different person each time of like, this is how the cuddle went.
A
That'd be an amazing series, actually. Yeah, docu-series, right?
Nurtured Nerds docu-series.
Yeah, and you do a different person each time. That would be awesome.
We would be filming dramatizations of people's experiences. Having like actors portray a cuddle party experience.
Well, we did that with Garvin. We had an animation of one of Garvin's cuddle experience with Faye.
Nice.
Oh, fun. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Anyway, yeah, always more to talk about.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Hey, man.
Oh, I was just going to thank everybody. I mean, you two are such a dynamic team. You have such great voices, both of you, and so well spoken. Sorry again about the typos. It's like that took a lot longer than I had preferably envisioned it, writing it up, and I was just like up till the last minute, okay, this is done, but I don't have time to proofread it again. And so I guess that did get under the radar, that whole wellness type of thing.
Yeah, sorry. I was like trying to make it work and my brain just would not let me make it into a sentence that made sense to me.
Invent a new word. It could be a new game of word.
Yeah, it was the word. It was supposed to be our own wellness, and I think it said now well or something.
Yeah.
That could be a new word.
Figure out what that meant.
The in the moment wellness is now well.
There you go. Now well, exactly. It was intentional.
Holy.
Sorry, I meant to do that.
No, it's all good. Yeah. Yeah.